The faint pulse of the Black Star's sensors was a constant, a mechanical heartbeat that no one noticed until it skipped. Lieutenant Carson leaned over his station, frowning at the anomaly blinking across his screen. "Commander Nolan, you'll want to see this." Nolan crossed the command deck, his boots clicking against the metallic floor. His sharp eyes scanned the data as Carson brought it up on the main display. A faint signal pulsed intermittently, barely discernible against the sea of cosmic background noise. It was weak, fragmented, and originating near a massive star at the edge of Sector 117. "Another glitch?" Nolan asked, his voice steady but carrying a note of skepticism. The Black Star's sensors had a reputation for being overly sensitive, picking up everything from distant asteroid collisions to faint emissions from ancient derelict satellites. "No, sir. This is structured, repeating, and—" He hesitated, his hands darting over the controls, inputting commands with practiced precision. "It's on a frequency that matches the Vornar's emergency protocols." The command deck fell silent. Nolan's jaw tightened as he straightened, his mind processing the gravity of the situation. The events that had brought him face to face with the Vornar weeks ago had been monumental. The alliance with Alrek had been built on mutual respect, and the memory of standing shoulder to shoulder with Varga to save countless lives was etched in his mind. If this signal was tied to them, it could mean trouble. "Pinpoint its location," Nolan ordered, "and boost the signal. Let's see if there's more to this than static." Carson complied, the holographic display shifting as the system recalibrated. The source of the signal was in a hazardous region near a massive star known for its intense radiation and gravitational anomalies. Communication in that zone was notoriously unreliable, and sensors often struggled to provide clear readings. "It's faint because of the star," Carson explained, "the radiation scattering the signal." Nolan folded his arms. "And yet it's still transmitting. That's persistence for you." He tapped his earpiece. "Get me Admiral Callahan." The connection crackled briefly before Callahan's commanding voice filled the deck. "Nolan, what have you got?" Nolan kept his tone professional, but urgent. "We've picked up an anomalous signal near a massive star in Sector 117. Weak, intermittent, but on a Vornar emergency frequency. It could be remnants of their lost fleet." Callahan didn't hesitate. "Investigate it. We need answers. We still don't fully understand what happened that day. If there's something in this sector with intentions that can lead to nearly extinguishing an entire civilization, we need to find out. I'll dispatch the Bastion to support you. Varga will lead the escort." Nolan nodded, knowing the weight of the Admiral's words. The Bastion wasn't just any vessel. It was a symbol of strength and precision that Nolan had seen firsthand. He and Varga had worked together before, their strategies complementing each other in ways that had proven critical. If Callahan was sending the Bastion and Varga right from the start, it meant he suspected there was more to this than just a faint signal. The Admiral wasn't taking any chances, and neither should they. "Understood," Nolan replied. "We'll prepare to move out immediately." Hours later, the sleek outline of Nolan's Artemis and the Bastion emerged from the edge of hyperspace, their hulls gleaming faintly against the distant glow of the massive star. The sector was eerily quiet, the only sound aboard the ships being the steady hum of their engines and the constant chatter of sensor updates. "Radiation levels are high," one of Nolan's officers reported. "It's already interfering with short-range communications." Nolan frowned, glancing at the star dominating the viewport. Its violent surface churned with flares and storms, a reminder of the raw power they were navigating. "Maintain formation and stay sharp. We're not here for sightseeing." In the Bastion, Varga's voice crackled through the comms. "This isn't exactly my idea of a friendly neighborhood patrol, Nolan. What do you think we're dealing with?" "That's what we're here to find out," Nolan replied. "But if the Vornar are involved, it means this is something worth paying attention to. They don't send distress signals lightly." The two ships began their methodical approach toward the source of the signal, weaving carefully through the gravitational eddies and pockets of radiation. Every step closer strained their instruments, the interference growing more intense. "We're nearing the coordinates," Holt announced. "Signal strength is improving." "Good," Nolan said, leaning forward. "But stay alert. If someone set a trap, this would be the place to do it." As the Artemis and the Bastion approached the signal's source, the holographic display aboard the Artemis revealed its grim secret. Fragments of ships, twisted and torn, drifting aimlessly in the void. Faintly illuminated by the distant star, the wreckage spoke of a devastating conflict. Massive hull sections floated in silence, their jagged edges bearing scorch marks and deep gashes where weapons had torn through. The sheer scale of the debris was haunting, an unmistakable testament to the destruction of a once formidable fleet. "Identifying the wreckage now," Holt murmured from the Artemis, his voice tinged with unease. A veteran of the last conflict with the Vornar, his tone carried the weight of someone too familiar with the aftermath of devastation. "The signatures match Vornar hull designs. This is definitely part of their fleet." Nolan's expression hardened. "What's left of it?" More fragments came into view, their jagged edges bearing scorch marks and evidence of catastrophic impacts. Some pieces rotated slowly, their surfaces pocked with the telltale signs of weapon fire. It was a graveyard of ships, and the silence over the comms only made it more haunting. The Bastion's sensors pinged in unison with the Artemis's. "Looks like we've found the answer, Nolan," Varga said grimly, "but I doubt either of us will like it." Nolan stared at the wreckage, his thoughts racing. Whatever had happened here wasn't a random accident or an isolated skirmish. This was deliberate, precise, and devastating. And it was only the beginning. The Artemis and the Bastion drifted cautiously through the chaotic expanse of space near the massive star. Its brilliant, violent flares churned in the distance, casting erratic shadows across the jagged remains of the Vornar fleet. Radiation levels spiked intermittently, forcing the crew to constantly recalibrate their instruments. "Adjust sensor arrays again," Nolan ordered, his voice cutting through the static-laden comms. Holt nodded from his station aboard the Artemis, his hands moving swiftly over the controls. "We're losing resolution every time the star pulses. We need to keep the readings steady." "Understood, Commander," Holt replied, the strain evident in his tone. "Short-range resolution is holding for now, but long-range scans are still compromised." On the Bastion, Varga's voice broke through the shared channel. "This radiation's like fighting through a storm with your eyes closed. You think the Vornar were ambushed here deliberately, Nolan?" Nolan's gaze remained fixed on the holographic display in front of him, where fragmented readings flickered. "If this was a trap, it's a damn good one. Whoever planned it knew how to use the environment to their advantage." The two ships pressed deeper into the debris field. "Commander," Holt called out, his voice sharper now. "Picking up smaller debris clusters. Scorch marks suggest precision strikes, likely coordinated. Whatever hit them, it wasn't random." Nolan leaned over Holt's console. The fragments, what was left of the Vornar's sleek ships, bore unmistakable signs of advanced weaponry. Clean penetrations through hulls, sections carved as if by surgical precision. "They didn't stand a chance," Nolan muttered. On board the Bastion, Varga studied a similar display, his expression grim. "Nolan, you're seeing this. Whoever did this didn't just want to destroy them, they wanted to send a message." "A message for whom?" Nolan shot back over the comms. "The Vornar, or anyone who'd come looking." Varga's silence was telling. As they pressed forward, the Artemis's sensors picked up faint energy readings ahead. "What's that?" Holt asked, narrowing his eyes at the display. "Residual power signatures, but it's erratic." "Lock onto it," Nolan ordered. "Could be a survivor." Holt fine-tuned the sensors, isolating the source. The readings pointed toward what appeared to be the remnants of a Vornar command ship, its structure half collapsed but still faintly powered. The vessel's fragmented silhouette loomed ahead, like a ghost of its former might. "Varga, we've got something," Nolan reported. "Possible active systems on one of the Vornar ships." "Understood. Bastion is adjusting course," Varga replied. "We'll cover you." The Artemis approached the wreckage cautiously, its hull lights revealing more of the ruined ship. Burned-out sections gaped open, their jagged edges glowing faintly from lingering heat signatures. The closer they got, the more obvious it became that the ship's destruction had been deliberate and recent. "Holt, give me a full scan of that wreck," Nolan ordered. Holt complied, his fingers touching the console. Active energy sources detected within the lower hull. Looks like a distress beacon. Weak, but operational. And... He paused, squinting at the readings. "Commander, there's encrypted data stored in the ship's core." Nolan straightened. "Can we extract it?" "It'll take time," Holt admitted. "The radiation interference isn't helping. Do what you can, Varga. We might need cover if this takes longer than expected." Varga's voice came through, calm but firm. "Understood. Bastion's got your back. Whatever's out there, we'll keep it off you." As the Artemis held position near the shattered Vornar ship, its crew worked methodically. Holt initiated the data extraction, while other team members scanned the surrounding debris for additional threats. Nolan paced the bridge, his mind racing with possibilities. "Commander," Holt called out again, his tone uneasy. "You're going to want to see this. The beacon. It's transmitting a fragmented log. Looks like a warning." Nolan stepped closer, his eyes narrowing as the message began to decipher. The words were broken, incomplete, but one phrase stood out clearly. "They knew. Everywhere we'd be." A chill settled over the bridge. Nolan exchanged a glance with Holt before tapping his comms. "Varga, whatever hit these Vornar, it wasn't just an ambush. They had intel." "You're saying someone fed them this?" Varga replied, his tone measured but edged with tension. "It's starting to look that way," Nolan said. "And if that's true, we're not just dealing with an enemy who's powerful. They're precise, and they've got reach." Varga's silence lingered for a moment. "Then let's make sure we don't become their target." The tension aboard both ships grew as the Artemis's crew continued their work. Data streamed in, revealing more about the ambush and raising more questions. Nolan's instincts told him they were only scratching the surface of something far bigger than they'd anticipated. The Artemis held steady near the fractured Vornar command ship, its hull lights revealing the jagged contours of the wreck, their glow carving out stark contrasts against the darkness. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. Holt worked feverishly at his console, isolating the weak signal emanating from the vessel's core systems. "I've locked onto the beacon," Holt reported. "It's weak, but holding." "There's more, though. The ship's core appears intact enough to house encrypted data logs. If we can access them, we might uncover what really happened here." Nolan nodded, stepping closer to the main display. "Can you extract it remotely, or do we need to board?" Holt shook his head. "The radiation's scrambling any attempt at remote synchronization. We'd have to send a team over to access the core directly." Nolan's expression hardened. Boarding a derelict ship this close to an unstable star was a risk, but the potential intelligence was too valuable to ignore. "Prep a boarding team," he ordered. "I'll lead it myself. Holt, you're coming with me. Reese, stay on the Artemis and monitor our progress." On the Bastion, Varga's voice came through the comms. "Nolan, you're really walking into that. That wreck looks like it's held together with duct tape and desperation." Nolan smirked faintly. "If you've got a better idea, I'm all ears. Keep an eye on our perimeter. If anything so much as twitches out there, I want to know about it." "Understood," Varga replied. "We'll cover you. Try not to get yourself killed." The boarding party suited up quickly, their movements practiced and efficient. As they crossed the short distance to the derelict ship, the void of space seemed to press in around them, the only sound their steady breaths and the faint hum of their thrusters. Inside the Vornar vessel, the damage was even more apparent. Scorch marks lined the walls, and severed conduits hung like vines from the ceiling. The air was stale, laced with the faint tang of burned metal. Holt's voice broke the silence over the comms. "Radiation levels are manageable for now, but we shouldn't linger. The core's through this corridor." The team moved cautiously, their flashlights cutting through the oppressive darkness. As they reached the core room, Holt immediately went to work, connecting his portable terminal to the ship's systems. "Data logs are here," he said, his voice tense. "Looks like fragments of tactical information, but... Commander, there's something else. A warning signal. It's been looping since the attack." Nolan stepped closer, peering over Holt's shoulder as the decrypted fragments scrolled across the screen. The words were broken, but chillingly clear. "Ambushed. Knew our routes. No chance. Precise strikes." Holt stared at the screen, his fingers pausing mid-motion before continuing with deliberate keystrokes. "This wasn't random," he said, his voice tight. "Someone handed them everything they needed." Nolan's expression hardened. "Finish the extraction. I want every piece of intel from this ship." Back on the Artemis, the full analysis painted a grim reality. The Vornar fleet's every move had been anticipated, their patterns exploited with ruthless efficiency. Nolan's mind raced. If the attackers had access to such precise information, it meant their network was far more extensive and far more dangerous than anyone had realized. "We need to get this back to the Black Star," he said. "Callahan and the Vornar need to see this." As the Artemis and the Bastion began their withdrawal, Nolan couldn't shake the weight of the discovery. The Vornar hadn't stood a chance, not because they were outmatched, but because they'd been betrayed. Whoever was behind this wasn't just targeting fleets. They were targeting alliances, stability, and trust. And if the Harvok had their sights set on the Vornar, it was only a matter of time before humanity found itself in their crosshairs as well. The Artemis and the Bastion emerged from the chaotic wreckage field, their engines steady against the vast expanse of space. The journey back to the Black Star carried a weight that was impossible to ignore. On the bridge of the Artemis, Nolan stood still, his gaze fixed on the holographic display where fragments of the Vornar fleet's data scrolled past, a stark reminder of the calculated devastation behind the attack. "We'll be within comms range in 10 minutes, Holt reported, breaking the silence. "Black Star is expecting us." "Good," Nolan replied. "Make sure the data is prepped for immediate transfer. Callahan will want to see this firsthand." On the Bastion, Varga leaned back in his command chair, his expression grim. "Nolan, this data confirms it. We're sitting on a powder keg." "Agreed," Nolan replied over the shared channel. "The real question is, who lit it?" As the Artemis docked with the Black Star, Nolan wasted no time stepping off the ship, Holt and Reese close behind. The gravity of the situation weighed on every step they took toward the command center. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. A secure channel linked Admiral Callahan to the command center, his image flickering on a holographic display. Officers aboard the Black Star worked furiously at their stations, deciphering the information Nolan's team had recovered. "Commander Nolan, Commander Varga." Callahan greeted them curtly as Varga entered the room moments later. "Tell me what I'm looking at." Nolan stepped forward. "Fragments of tactical data from the wreckage. The fleet was ambushed with surgical precision. They knew every route, every contingency. This wasn't a random encounter. It was an execution." Callahan's holographic image nodded grimly. "And you're sure this information is credible?" Holt interjected. "The logs are consistent across multiple data points, sir. There's no doubt that the attackers had inside knowledge." Moments later, the holographic display shifted as a secure channel opened. The Vornar crest appeared briefly before Ulrich's image materialized. His expression was solemn but resolute. Ulrich's towering presence dominated the hologram. His dark, scaled skin shimmered faintly under the artificial light, the patterns across his face resembling flowing currents. Dual golden eyes, sharp and unblinking, carried a weight that made it clear he was no stranger to command. His attire, a combination of plated armor and ceremonial fabric marked with the intricate insignia of the Vornar fleet, reinforced his dual role as both warrior and diplomat. Nolan took a moment to register the sight before him. The last time he had faced Ulrich, he'd barely had time to process the alien's imposing figure amidst the chaos of battle. Now, the same presence that had once left him wary felt almost reassuring. Confidence replaced the hesitation he remembered from their first encounter. "Commander Nolan, Admiral Callahan," Alrek began, his dual-layered voice carrying a weight that demanded attention. "I received your transmission. What you've uncovered aligns with troubling patterns we've observed." "Patterns?" Callahan asked, leaning forward slightly. Alrek nodded. "Weeks before the attack in your sector, the Council approached our leadership with a proposal for formal alliance. They spoke of shared defense and economic benefits. At the time, we believed it to be a diplomatic overture, until the attacks began." The room fell silent as Alrek continued. "What you've uncovered confirms our worst fears. These attacks are not isolated, they are coordinated. And we believe the attackers are acting under orders from a rival power, one that views any potential alliances with the Council as a threat to their influence." Nolan's gaze hardened. The precision of the ambush. Someone fed them this information. "Do you think your leadership was compromised?" Alrek hesitated. "It is a possibility we cannot ignore. But there are other ways to obtain such data. Espionage, intercepted communications. The HFY are not above using such methods." Before the conversation could progress further, the Black Star's comms system crackled, and the holographic display flickered. Static filled the air before the images of Alrek and Callahan distorted. "What's happening?" Callahan demanded. "Is it—" His voice cut off mid-sentence as the hologram dissolved into static. An officer turned sharply to Nolan. "Communications are being jammed. It's not interference from the star. This is deliberate." As alarms began to blare, Nolan's instincts kicked in. "They're here!" The alarms blared through the Black Star, their shrill tones slicing through the tense silence that had settled in the command center just moments before. Nolan stood frozen for a fraction of a second, processing the chaos erupting around him. Officers scrambled to their stations, hands darting over consoles as data streamed across holographic displays. The Black Star's sensors were alight with warnings, each more ominous than the last. "Multiple contacts emerging on the edge of our sensor range." Carson's voice rang out, sharp with urgency. "They're moving fast. It's a fleet." Nolan's jaw tightened as he barked, "Get me visual confirmation." His eyes locked on the main display as the tactical feed began to coalesce. The shapes of the incoming ships resolved into jagged silhouettes, alien, predatory, and unmistakably hostile. "These are not reconnaissance vessels," Holt muttered from the tactical console. "This is an assault force." Before anyone could respond, the first salvos hit. The Black Star shuddered violently as the enemy's opening barrage struck the station's shields. Energy blooms flared across the external cameras, rippling against the station's defenses like waves crashing against a fragile shore. "Shields holding at 70%, Carson reported, his voice strained. "But they're focusing their fire on the western array. We'll lose it if we don't divert power." Nolan spun toward the comms officer. "Re-establish contact with Alrek. We need to know if this is connected to what we've uncovered." The officer shook her head, frustration etched on her face. "The jamming field is too strong. I can't get anything through." "Damn it," Nolan growled. He turned to Varga, who stood nearby. "Get to the bastion. We'll need its firepower out there." Varga nodded sharply, already moving. "And you?" he called back. "I'll take the Artemis." "Reese will handle the Solace," Nolan replied. "We'll meet them head-on." Within minutes, the two commanders were back aboard their ships. The Solace, a sleek support vessel built for rapid responses, slid into formation alongside the Artemis, its reinforced frame exuding strength and readiness. Engines glowed faintly, a testament to the vessel's agility and adaptability in the chaos of battle. Across the void, the bastion loomed, its massive hull and heavy artillery standing as a stark contrast to the smaller ships scrambling to form a defensive perimeter. "All ships, this is Commander Nolan." His voice cut through the fleet's comms. "Form up on the Artemis and Bastion. Prioritize shielding the Black Star. Use the station's mass to your advantage." The smaller ships responded with precision, darting into formation around the Artemis and Bastion. Together, they created a layered defense, each vessel covering the vulnerabilities of the next. Nolan watched the tactical display closely, his mind racing to anticipate the enemy's moves. The first wave of enemy fighters descended upon them with a fury that defied expectation. Their ships were fast, nimble, and armed with weapons that seemed to pierce through shields with unsettling ease. Nolan's orders came rapid fire, directing his fleet to counterstrike while minimizing exposure. "Reese, take those frigates out of the equation," Nolan ordered. "We can't afford them picking off our support ships." "On it, Commander," Reese replied, his voice steady despite the chaos. The Solace's weapon systems lit up, beams of concentrated energy slicing through the void to intercept the advancing frigates. Explosions blossomed in the distance, marking small victories amidst the overwhelming assault. Meanwhile, Varga's voice came through the comms, resolute and commanding. "The Bastion is holding their heavy hitters. Nolan, we'll need an opening to cripple their carriers." Nolan's mind raced. The carriers were the backbone of the enemy fleet, deploying waves of fighters and providing logistical support. Taking them out would shift the momentum, but it required precision and timing. "Reese, divert power to engines and weapons. We're punching through their formation," Nolan commanded. The Artemis surged forward, leading a spearhead of smaller ships toward the enemy's central formation. The Bastion followed closely, its heavy guns pounding the enemy's defensive line. The coordinated assault began to fracture the enemy fleet, forcing them to pull back and regroup. Despite the progress, the Black Star situation remained dire. Reports of structural damage poured in, and the station's shields were dangerously close to failing. Nolan knew they were running out of time. Every decision carried weight, every maneuver a gamble with lives hanging in the balance. "Commander," Holt's voice came through, tight with urgency. "The western array is about to collapse. If it goes, we lose our long-range defenses." Nolan's jaw clenched. "Reese, break off and cover that array. Varga, keep the pressure on their carriers. We need to end this now." As the Artemis veered toward the beleaguered western array, Nolan felt the weight of the battle pressing down on him. The enemy's tactics were relentless, their coordination unnervingly precise. Yet amidst the chaos, the ingenuity and determination of his crew shone through. Each maneuver, each shot fired, was a testament to their resilience. The fight was far from over, but one thing was clear. The Black Star and its defenders would not go down without a fight. The Bastion and the Artemis maneuvered through the chaotic battlefield, their engines leaving faint trails against the void as the Harvok pressed their assault. Flames erupted from a breached section of the Black Star, its structure visibly straining under the relentless barrage of incoming fire. Explosions rippled along its surface as sections of the outer hull buckled under pressure, sparks cascading into the void. "Adjust course 5 degrees port," Nolan barked. "Let's draw their fire away from the station." The sleek outline of the Bastion loomed nearby, its weaponry firing with devastating precision. Varga's calm voice broke through the comms. "They're testing our perimeter. If they breach the Black Star's shields, it's over." Nolan scanned the tactical display, his mind racing. The Harvok outnumbered them, their formations tight and coordinated. He exhaled sharply, muttering under his breath. "If we had a larger fleet, this would be over by now. But we'll make do with what we have. We always do." Holt's voice came through the comms from the Artemis, steady despite the chaos. "Nolan, we're holding the eastern flank, but we can't sustain this forever. They're focusing fire on the smaller ships." "Understood," Nolan replied, his tone resolute. "Reese, bring the Solace closer to the Bastion's position. Varga, give them cover fire while we regroup the lighter ships." "Copy that," Varga responded. The Bastion's heavy artillery roared to life, providing the needed suppression as the Solace repositioned. Reese executed the maneuver flawlessly, keeping the ship steady despite the barrage of enemy fire. "Artemis, deploying countermeasures," Nolan ordered, releasing a spread of decoy drones to disrupt the Harvok targeting systems. The drones flared brightly, creating a momentary opening in the enemy's formation. "Reese, take the lead on the eastern flank," Nolan commanded. "I'll cover your 6. Varga, keep hammering their core line." The coordination between the human ships was seamless, their movements precise and adaptive. Yet, the Harvok continued to press their advantage, exploiting every vulnerability. Inside the Artemis, Nolan's crew worked tirelessly, sweat dripping as they monitored systems and recalibrated shields. The ship groaned under the strain, alarms blaring as another blast rocked its hull. "Commander, we've lost the Argus," Reese reported grimly, his voice heavy with the weight of the loss. Nolan's gaze flicked to the fiery remains of the Argus on the tactical display. A brief silence hung over the bridge, the loss weighing on everyone present. "Honor their sacrifice," Nolan said, his tone steady and commanding. "Close the gap. Bring the Artemis into formation and hold the line." He straightened, his sharp eyes scanning the display with renewed focus. "All ships, adjust positions now. We finish this, for the Argus and everyone depending on us." The crew moved without hesitation, Nolan's resolve sparking a determined rhythm across the bridge as the Artemis surged forward to fill the breach. "Seal off the gap and reroute power to the shields," Nolan ordered. "We can't afford to lose structural integrity now." From the bastion, Varga's voice cut through the comms, sharp and unwavering. "Their lead ship is advancing. If we don't stop them here, they'll cripple the Black Star." Nolan keyed into the tactical system, aligning the Artemis with the bastion. "Then we stop them here. Reese, hit their flank hard. Varga, stay with me." The Artemis and the bastion surged forward together, their combined firepower hammering the Harvok lead ship. Explosions rippled across its surface, forcing it to veer off course. The Solace swept in from the side, delivering a precision strike that severed one of the enemy's primary weapons arrays. "Direct hit," Reese called out, his voice triumphant. Nolan allowed himself a fleeting moment of satisfaction before refocusing. "Good work, but we're not done. Keep the pressure on." The battlefield was a chaotic dance of destruction and survival. Though outnumbered, the human forces held their ground with ingenuity and grit. Nolan's voice remained a constant presence over the comms, directing maneuvers and holding the defensive line. As the Harvok regrouped for another push, Nolan's eyes flicked to the tactical display. The Black Star's shields were faltering, energy reserves nearing critical levels. His jaw tightened as he barked orders. "We need to hold a little longer." The Artemis, Bastion, and Solace moved in unison, forming a wall of resistance against the relentless Harvok assault. But not all ships could hold. A support corvette veered off course, its hull ruptured by enemy fire. Moments later, it detonated in a fiery bloom, leaving a jagged void in the formation. Nolan's own resolve echoed within him. "We'll make do with what we have. We always do." The Artemis shuddered violently as another wave of Harvok fire slammed into its shields, the flickering barrier barely holding against the relentless assault. Inside, Nolan gripped the command console, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. Every decision felt like a gamble, every maneuver a desperate attempt to delay the inevitable. "Holt, give me an update," Nolan barked. "Shields at 40%, Reese replied, his voice steady despite the chaos. "We've rerouted power from secondary systems, but it's not going to hold much longer." The Artemis groaned under the strain, her hull scarred from near misses and direct hits alike. Inside, the bridge was a controlled chaos, consoles sparking intermittently as Nolan's crew worked tirelessly to keep the systems online. Every maneuver felt like a test of endurance. How much more could the Artemis take before she faltered? "Understood," Nolan muttered, scanning the display. The Harvok fleet had tightened its formation, pressing their advantage as the human defenses began to falter. "Reese, what's the status on the Solace?" The Solace's frame, once a pristine testament to human engineering, now bore scorch marks and fractured plating from relentless Harvok fire. Inside, its crew scrambled to stabilize critical systems, each alarm blaring a reminder of how close they were to collapse. "We're holding position, Commander, but they're focusing fire on our support ships. The Bastion's giving us cover, but we're stretched thin," Reese replied, his voice tight with tension. Before Nolan could respond, A sharp tone cut through the noise. Carson's voice came through the Black Star's comms. "Commander, we're detecting a spike in subspace activity. It could be reinforcements, or something worse." "Define worse," Nolan shot back, his tone clipped. Carson hesitated. "Another fleet." "Hostile signatures, wait! No, this is different!" Before the implications could sink in, a sudden burst of static filled the comms. The tactical display flickered, and for a moment, all sensors went dark. Nolan's heart sank. Whatever was happening, it was big. "Reese, report!" "Working on it," Reese replied, frantically adjusting the controls. "Sensors are rebooting. Wait, we've got something. Incoming ships, lots of them. But they're not Harvok." A new signal broke through the static, clear and commanding. It was a voice Nolan recognized immediately, one that carried the weight of authority and a promise of retribution. "This is Commander Alrek. The Vornar are here." The bridge fell silent for a heartbeat as the words sank in. Then, on the tactical display, dozens of signatures materialized, emerging from hyperspace in a coordinated maneuver. The Vornar fleet had arrived, their ships sleek and imposing, bristling with weapons and defensive systems. "They're beautiful," Reese muttered, breaking the silence. Nolan allowed himself a brief moment of relief before snapping back into action. "All ships, hold your positions. Let the Vornar take the lead. Varga, adjust the Bastion's formation to cover their flanks." The Bastion, built as a fortress among ships, was showing her limits. Sections of her reinforced plating had been stripped away, exposing damaged internal systems that vented gas and debris into the cold void. Despite this, her heavy artillery fired relentlessly, each volley a declaration of defiance against the Harvok onslaught. "On it," Varga replied, his voice tinged with newfound determination. "Let's show them what a human Vornar alliance looks like." The Vornar fleet wasted no time. Their ships moved with precision, carving through the Harvok formation like a blade through armor. Energy weapons lanced out in coordinated volleys, striking with devastating accuracy. The Harvok, caught off guard by the sudden reinforcements, scrambled to regroup, their once imposing assault now faltering. The arrival of the Vornar fleet had shifted the momentum of the battle, but it was far from over. The Harvok, though clearly on the back foot, showed no signs of retreat. Their formations adjusted quickly, the chaotic assault reorganizing into a layered defense around their primary vessels. They were digging in for a fight, and Nolan knew this wouldn't be an easy victory. Nolan's voice crackled over the comms. "All ships, hold your positions but prepare for coordinated strikes. Varga, get the Bastion in line with the Vornar forward units. We'll need every gun trained on those carriers." The Bastion's engines roared to life, the massive vessel repositioning itself alongside the sleek, imposing lines of Vornar cruisers. On board, Varga watched as the tactical display synchronized with the Vornar fleet's systems. Their targeting data merged seamlessly, giving the combined forces an edge in precision and timing. "Nolan?" Varga's calm but focused tone came through. "Alrek's already pushing his forward units into their right flank. We should focus on their left to divide their attention." Nolan nodded, his hands steady on the Artemis's controls. "Agreed. Reese, take the Solace and the smaller ships to the left flank. Engage their lighter craft and keep them occupied." Reese's reply was immediate. "Understood, Commander. We'll keep them busy." The Solace surged forward, her engines flaring brightly as she led a formation of nimble human vessels toward the Harvok's left flank. They darted between enemy ships, their precise strikes disabling weapon systems and engines. The Harvok scrambled to respond, their smaller ships struggling to keep up with the humans' relentless assault. Meanwhile, the Artemis and the Bastion coordinated their firepower with the Vornar. Alrek's voice broke through the comms, his tone sharp and commanding. "Commander Nolan, we're targeting their lead carrier. Your firepower can breach its shields if we combine forces." Nolan didn't hesitate. "Acknowledged. Varga, follow my lead. Let's take it down." The Artemis veered sharply, her weapons locking onto the massive Harvok carrier that anchored the enemy fleet. The Bastion followed suit, her heavy cannons charging for a devastating volley. Around them, Vornar cruisers provided cover, their energy weapons slicing through HFY fighters attempting to intercept. "Fire on my mark," Nolan commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. 3, 2, 1, fire! The combined firepower of the Artemis, Bastion, and Vornar cruisers converged on the carrier. Its shields flared brilliantly, straining under the assault before collapsing entirely. Explosions rippled across its hull, tearing through critical systems. The HFY carrier listed to one side, fires consuming its structure as secondary blasts tore it apart from within. A cheer erupted across the human and Vornar comms, but Nolan's focus remained razor-sharp. "Don't let up! Take out their command ships before they regroup." Alrek's fleet moved with precision, pressing the advantage created by the carrier's destruction. Their ships formed an unyielding wall, driving deep into the HFY formation and forcing them into retreat. The HFY's movements became increasingly disjointed, their once formidable assault now crumbling under the relentless pressure. Reese's voice came through, triumphant, but tinged with exhaustion. "Left flank is clear. They're pulling back to regroup, but we're holding steady." "Good work, Reese," Nolan replied. "Keep applying pressure. We're almost there." As the HFY forces continued to collapse, one of their command ships attempted to flee, its engines flaring as it broke formation. Nolan's eyes narrowed. "Alrek, can you intercept that ship?" Alrek's response was immediate. "Consider it done." A trio of Vornar vessels peeled away from the main fleet, their weapons locking onto the fleeing command ship. Coordinated volleys struck its engines, disabling it before it could escape. The HFY ship drifted aimlessly, its crew surrendering as the Vornar prepared to board. With the enemy fleet in disarray, the Black Star's defenders seized the moment. The remaining HFY ships began to scatter, their cohesion shattered. Nolan leaned back slightly, his grip on the console relaxing for the first time since the battle began. "We've done it," Varga's voice came through, tinged with a rare note of relief. "They're retreating." Nolan exhaled deeply, his gaze sweeping over the tactical display. The battlefield was littered with debris, the remnants of both HFY and Allied ships drifting in the void. It was a costly victory, but a victory nonetheless. "All ships, hold position and assess damage," Nolan ordered. "We need to secure the area and regroup." The Artemis's bridge fell into a hushed quiet, the crew exchanging weary but triumphant glances. Nolan's thoughts turned briefly to the sacrifices made to achieve this moment. There was no time to dwell, but the weight of those losses would linger. "Commander Alrek," Nolan said, opening a channel to the Vornar leader. "Your timing couldn't have been better. We couldn't have done this without you." Alrek's image appeared on the display, his expression resolute. "Nor could we have succeeded without your ingenuity and determination. This victory belongs to both our peoples." As the Vornar ships began to consolidate their positions, the Bastion and Solace moved to assist the Artemis in forming a defensive perimeter. The battle was over, but the scars it left behind were a grim testament of the cost of survival. Nolan knew there was still much to discuss, alliances to strengthen, and a looming threat to confront. For now, they had held the line, together. The debris field was thick, a chaotic testament to the ferocity of the battle that had just ended. The Artemis glided cautiously through the carnage, its once pristine hull marred by blackened scorch marks and gaping dents. Inside, Nolan leaned back in his command chair, exhaustion and relief battling for dominance on his face. The tactical display was finally clear. No HFY signatures remained within range. "Status update," Nolan called, his voice hoarse but steady. "Sensors confirm enemy retreat," Holt reported from his console. "No signs of pursuit. They're pulling back beyond our effective range." Reese added, "The Black Star's shields are stabilizing, but it's holding on by a thread. Structural integrity is compromised in multiple sections. Repair crews are already moving in." "They'll need all the help they can get," Nolan murmured. He glanced at the comm panel. "Patch me through to all ships." Reese gave a quick nod, and the channel opened. This is Commander Nolan. To all units. The Harvok have retreated. The Black Star is secure. Repeat, the Black Star is secure. A cheer erupted over the comms, a brief but poignant burst of hope amidst the devastation. Nolan let it carry for a moment before continuing. Begin recovery operations. Search for survivors and tend to the wounded. Every life matters. Dismissed. The channel closed, and Nolan exhaled heavily. Just as he did, Varga's voice cut through the Artemis's comms, its usual sharpness tempered by an undertone of camaraderie. Not bad, Nolan. I'd say you've earned at least a few hours of sleep. Nolan allowed himself a faint smile. Sleep sounds nice, but I think you've got me beat. Bastion took a pounding out there. She's still in one piece. Barely, Varga replied. We're patching her up, but she'll fly again. Can't say the same for half the fleet, though. Nolan's smile faded. He turned his gaze to the viewport, where fragments of ships drifted aimlessly in the void. Fires still flickered on some of the wreckage, a stark reminder of the cost of their victory. It wasn't just the fleet, Nolan said quietly. We lost good people today. A victory always comes with a cost, Varga replied, his tone somber. But we held, and we made damn sure the Harvok knew what it meant to stand against us. The comms fell silent for a beat before Reese's voice chimed in. Commander, incoming message from the Black Star. It's Carson. Put him through, Nolan ordered. Carson's image flickered onto a side panel, his expression haggard but resolute. Commander Nolan, we've completed a preliminary assessment. Casualties are high, and the station's infrastructure is critically damaged, but we're alive. That counts for something. It does, Nolan agreed. Focus on stabilizing the wounded and securing the station. We'll coordinate recovery efforts as soon as we're able. Carson nodded. Understood. I'll keep you updated. Black Star out. The channel closed, and Nolan turned to Holt. Begin docking procedures. I want the Artemis alongside the Black Star ASAP. Aye, Commander, Holt replied, his hands already moving across the console. While the Artemis completed its docking sequence, the Black Star hung in the void like a wounded Leviathan, its hull scarred and smoldering from the relentless assault it had endured. Small repair craft swarmed around the station, their lights flickering against the deep shadows of structural damage. Inside, the command center was a hive of activity as personnel worked tirelessly to restore functionality. Yet amidst the chaos, there was a palpable sense of relief, a grim acknowledgement that they had survived. Minutes later, the Artemis's engines powered down as the ship docked with the battered station. Nolan stepped off the ramp, his boots clanging against the scorched metal of the docking bay. Varga met him there, his uniform smeared with soot and blood, but his posture unyielding. Nolan walked through the debris-littered corridors of the Black Star, his posture rigid despite the fatigue etched into his features. Varga walked beside him, his usual stoicism softened by the weight of their shared victory. The two commanders exchanged a glance as they approached the central briefing room. You look like hell, Nolan, Varga remarked, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. Takes one to know one, Nolan replied, his tone carrying a hint of camaraderie. But at least I didn't have to explain to my crew why their ship's plating looks like Swiss cheese. Varga's chuckle was short, but genuine. Fair. But next time, let's not wait for a miracle to turn the tide. Agreed, Nolan said, his expression hardening as the door to the briefing room slid open. Inside, Alrek awaited them, his dark, scaled skin glinting faintly under the dim lighting, his tall frame casting a commanding presence against the dimly lit room. His luminous eyes carried a mix of gratitude and determination as he greeted the two humans. Commanders Nolan, Varga, your actions today were nothing short of extraordinary. Nolan met Alrek's gaze, his tone measured. We're in this together. If it weren't for your fleet, this station would be nothing more than debris. Alrek inclined his head, his luminous eyes reflecting a mix of gratitude and determination. I told you, when you needed us, we'd be there. A faint smile touched Nolan's lips. And you were. But this isn't the end, is it? Alrek's expression grew somber. No. The Harvok's assault was only one front in a larger conflict. Their actions are methodical, their goals clear: destabilization and division. If we do not act decisively, their next move will be even more devastating. Varga crossed his arms, his voice cutting through the weight of Alrek's words. Then we don't wait for them to come to us. We take the fight to them. Nolan nodded, his gaze shifting to the tactical display that dominated the room. The image of the battered Black Star juxtaposed against the wreckage of Harvok ships served as a brutal reminder of what they had endured. First, we consolidate. The Black Star needs repairs, and our fleet needs reinforcements. Callahan will want a full debrief, and if the Council has any intention of playing a role in this, they need to step up. Alrek's voice softened slightly. The Council's path is fraught with hesitation, but I will ensure that my people understand the urgency. The Harvok cannot be allowed to dictate the future of so many worlds. As Nolan gazed out at the wreckage, a voice broke his thoughts. It was Reese, who had joined them silently. We won, Commander. It doesn't feel like it, but we did. Nolan nodded slowly. We did. But this isn't the end. It's just the beginning. The room fell into a contemplative silence, each leader lost in their thoughts. Outside, the hum of repair drones and the distant murmur of crews working to stabilize the station served as a backdrop to the gravity of the moment. Finally, Nolan broke the silence. We've got a lot to do and not much time to do it. But one thing's clear. This alliance isn't just a necessity anymore. It's the only way we're going to survive what's coming. Alrek placed a hand over his chest in a gesture of solemn commitment. Then let us ensure that what begins here, today, becomes the foundation of a force the Harvok cannot break. As the three leaders exited the briefing room, the weight of their words lingered in the air. Nolan paused near a viewport, his eyes drawn to the flickering lights of the repair teams, working tirelessly on the Black Star's exterior. The station, much like its defenders, bore the scars of battle, a testament to resilience and sacrifice. Varga stepped up beside him, breaking the silence. What's the plan, Nolan? Nolan's gaze didn't waver as he replied, We'll rebuild, regroup, and make damn sure the Harvok wish they'd never set foot in this sector. For a moment, Varga said nothing, his gaze distant. Then, with a faint grin, he replied, Now that's a plan I can stand behind. Nolan's expression sharpened, determination etched into every line. But first, we report to Callahan. The UED won't wait for permission, not after this. The Council may hesitate, but we won't. If we're going to push back, we'll need every ship, every ally, every advantage. They'll never catch us unprepared again. Varga's grin widened. Callahan's gonna love that. They stood there, Nolan and Varga side by side, their reflections caught in the dim sheen of the corridor's reinforced glass. Around them, the faint hum of the ship whispered of recovery, resilience, and the road ahead. The future was steeped in uncertainty, the challenges ahead daunting. Yet amidst the chaos, one truth stood firm. Humanity and the Vornar were no longer mere allies. They were united, a force ready to face whatever came next. Hey there again. I'm glad you've come so far. Hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to hit the like button and the subscribe button. This is really important to the channel. Really important. And I have one more thing for you. I've chosen another video for you to watch. Just click the card here, or here if you want the whole playlist. See you there.